So for Grammar Unit 1, Exercise 7, we have a new pattern again, and they are all mixed up, so that's a possibility. You could have any one of the 7 patterns that you've already encountered, or our new pattern, pattern 8. So in our sentence, we have a noun phrase, that's the subject, right? The students, the judge, the clerk. And then we have a direct object and an indirect object. And so we said in class that it's really useful if you use those questions that are at the bottom of that orange handout. Who or what was verbed, just substitute whatever your verb is. And then to whom or for whom was that direct object, whatever. So in this case, the student studied the assignment, right? Who or what was studied, the assignment. Who or what was given, the homework. To whom or for whom was the homework given, to the professor. Okay, so the professor is going to be your indirect object, and the homework, what was given, is going to be your direct object. So one of the things that can be tricky with pattern 8 is if you take this noun phrase, the indirect object, and you put it at the end, to the professor. So if you got rid of it there, we could have it circled as a prepositional phrase, and it would still be a prepositional phrase in form, but technically it would be functioning as the indirect object. And so that's why on the back, if you look at your prepositions list, there are 2 prepositions, for and to, that have that little number 2 footnote next to them, and you always want to check whatever the noun phrase is that's the object of that preposition. You've got a transitive verb in your sentence already, and you've got a direct object in your sentence already. When you go across the bottom row and you figure out what your prepositions are in function, there's that remote possibility that that could be the indirect object. And so you always sort of want to double check if you have a to or a for preposition. So let's go through and take a look at sentence 1, because it may or may not even have a direct object and a transitive verb. So Jessica made her new boyfriend some cookies. So if we look at what's our verb, right, it's made. There are no prepositions, so we don't have to worry about meaning, movability test, whether or not they're prepositional phrases, because they aren't even in here. So we can draw our lines. So if we look at our sentence, we've got Jessica's a noun phrase, her new boyfriend is a noun phrase, and some cookies is a noun phrase. So I like to underline and group my noun phrases, because even if they get absorbed by a preposition, that still makes it a little easier for me to figure out what I have. So across the top row there, Jessica's the first thing that we have in our sentence, so she's noun phrase 1. Her new boyfriend is different than Jessica, so that's noun phrase 2. And cookies are different than the boyfriend and different than Jessica, so that's noun phrase 3. So solid line, dotted line, doesn't really matter to me. I like to split them up just to keep everything kind of organized and boxy. As long as everything's aligned, that's fine, but don't stick direct object, indirect object here, and leave me to figure it, because that won't be correct. So keep it kind of lined up. So use lines if that helps you to keep things organized. So now that we've got the whole top row figured out, we can identify that we have a pattern 8, and so we have a subject, a transitive verb, and a direct object and an indirect object, because pattern 8 has that noun phrase 3. That's that special thing that tells us we have pattern 8. Pattern 9 is going to have an adjective, and pattern 10 is going to have another noun phrase 2. We won't get to those until next week. So we have to figure out which one of these is the direct object and which one of these is the indirect object, because Jessica did the making, and we know we have a transitive verb because we have a noun phrase 2. So who or what was made? That's our direct object question. That's the cookies. To whom or for whom the cookies were made. That's going to be our indirect object, and that's the boyfriend. So in our sentence, because we have a noun phrase 2, a noun phrase 3, it's pattern 8. Let's take a look at sentence 2. I made an A on my research paper. So we say made is our verb. We do have a preposition, on. So when we look at our sentence, we have an A, I, even though it's a little one-word pronoun, still we're going to label it noun phrase. And then we've got a third noun phrase, my research paper. remember when you have an entire noun phrase in between your verb and that preposition, it's not going to be a particle. So we have to decide, is on my research paper, is that a prepositional phrase? And it is. So sentence-wise, draw our lines, and then we'll go all the way across the top row. So I is our first thing, and A is a different thing than that sort of like first person pronoun speaker there. So I am not the same as the A. And so on my research paper, we said is a prepositional phrase. So bottom row, we don't have 9 yet, so we don't have to worry about it being an adjective that's a redefinition. So since we have a prepositional phrase and not another noun phrase, it's going to be pattern 7, right? As soon as you have a noun phrase 2, you know it's a transitive verb. And then it's just a matter of, is it 7, 8, 9, or 10? So we have a subject, direct object, but we have no indirect object, so it has to be pattern 7. So on my research paper, if there's different kinds of A's, there's research paper A's and there's other kinds of A's, then that could be an adjective, but there really aren't. So on my research paper is where that was made. An A is an A is an A. Okay, and so that makes that an adverb. So you draw your arrow to the verb. All right, so in class we'll take a look at 3, 4, and that'll be it. And then all 4 of the ones on the back will then be independent practice. So see you next class.